Trump economy adds another 3.7 million jobs in August, with 13.8 million jobs total recovered since April as rapid recovery continues. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the economy. Wow. We produced another 3.7 million jobs back into the economy that have been recovered in the month of August. And great news. That's from the household survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And 13.8 million jobs recovered since April, when labor markets bottomed, when states were shutting down, schools were closing, businesses were closing. 25 million people were knocked out of work. And many of them are still working from home right now. But the good news is that we've recovered more than half of those jobs. Almost 14 million jobs have been recovered since the labor markets bottomed completely. And so this is just great news for the American people. It's also pretty good news for President Trump. I think politically, I think this is going to help him a great deal in his election against former Vice President Joe Biden. And let's take a look at these numbers. These are just really, really good numbers, where you can see a V-shaped recovery forming right here when the labor markets collapsed. You went from 158.7 million Americans with jobs, 3.5% unemployment, all the way down to 133.4 million. And now we're back up to 147.3 million. So this is the most rapid recovery in American history. The establishment survey, that looks at employers and they say how many people are on payroll. It shows the same thing. 10.6 million jobs have been recovered, but this doesn't include people who are self-employed, and so it doesn't really give you the full picture, though it shows you the same picture. The numbers confirm one another, and again, that's just wonderful news for the American people. It comes as COVID cases are stabilizing and continuing to decline as they have over the summer, since they peaked at about mid-July. And now we're down. We were up to about 75,000 confirmed cases per day. Now we're down to about 43,000. So that's great news. And the same story in states across the country that had experienced this surge over the summer. In mid-July, Texas was peaking, and now they're way down. Same deal with California and Florida and Arizona as well. They're all showing the same thing, which is that cases have really stabilized, and that explains why the jobs recovery is taking place. As fewer people are sick, businesses open up more, then they're going to be willing to send people back to work, and people are going to be willing to go back to work and go shopping and everything like that. And as the cold and flu season picks up, whether or not there's a vaccine that's available by the end of the year, I think it's going to really determine whether this economic recovery can be sustained. But for now, I think things are smooth sailing. And this is just an unbelievable recovery that almost nobody but President Trump was predicting. In just 4 short months, almost 14 million jobs have come back into the Trump-Pence economy, thanks to President Trump's leadership to stabilize the pandemic and get the U.S. economy safely reopened for business. For perspective, it almost took the Obama-Biden economy 5 years to recover 8 million jobs lost in the financial crisis, where labor markets bottomed in December of 2009, and you wouldn't get those jobs back until 2014. Here, President Trump, in just 4 short months, has helped to recover 14 million jobs. And I think that's because of his leadership and working with Congress, the considerable foresight. He and Congress, with the payroll protection plan, saved 5.2 million small businesses. President Trump credits that with saving or supporting 50 million jobs in the United States. Take a listen to this acceptance speech at the White House for the Republican nomination last week.
We enacted the largest package of financial relief in American history. Thanks to our Paycheck Protection Program, we have saved or supported more than 50 million American jobs. That's one of the reasons that we're advancing so rapidly with our economy. Great job.
Great job indeed. And that's just why we're here right now. It's because of the foresight that President Trump and Congress had to put into place, the economic supports, not just for small businesses, but in addition, unemployment benefits were expanded, critical industries such as airlines were supported, state and local governments were reinforced, foreclosures and evictions were postponed, banks were encouraged, and they actually followed through at granting homeowners forbearance on their mortgages. And all this was in a bid to help and encourage Americans to stay home temporarily temporarily while the adequate pandemic response was being built up. We needed more testing. They had to get production ramped up for ventilators so that production could actually catch up with the hospital resources that were needed to fight the pandemic. Fortunately, nobody who needed a ventilator went without a ventilator thanks to the ramping up of production. And it's just a great public-private partnership there between the federal government, state governments, and businesses in America that put everything into place that we would need to get through this pandemic. And now because of that, we're able to safely reopen. 14 million jobs have been recovered. Now, looking forward, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation cases were peaking in March at about 280,000 per day. Now you're down to about, according to IHME, about 138,000. They're expecting as the cold and flu season picks up, though, that number is going to actually start to rise into September, October, November, and December. And so you might expect states to go on to a more restrictive footing if the cases start to go up again. So kind of food for thought there. As of note, we looked at the establishment survey, 10.6 million jobs there. The difference between the two is that, again, the household survey includes self-employed people. The establishment survey goes with what employers are saying for people who are on payroll. And so I think that probably the household survey gives you a more complete picture about what's happening in the U.S. economy right now. It's the one I favor personally. And we saw a massive 31.7% contraction of the GDP in the second quarter. And that's just unfortunate. But the good news is that we're going to see a massive recovery now. According to the Atlanta Fed, they're saying that a 29.6% increase of the gross domestic product is predicted for the third quarter. And this will be the last GDP report. It will come out right before the election. And it's by far a record. I mean, you can already see it taking place. You can't have that many people coming back into the workforce and not expect a double-digit recovery. But getting to almost 30% increase in GDP would be outstanding. 20% would be unbelievable. And we're just at a really good position right now, I believe, economically, thanks to President Trump's leadership. And we should all be very grateful that, good decisions were made early on in this pandemic to think ahead about what the impacts were going to be. Also of note and great news, 765,000 Americans came off unemployment the week of August 22. So this is after the August survey has already been completed and they're tabulating it. So I think some of these numbers of that 765,000 is going to get into the September number. And again, that's just great news. And nobody but President Trump, I think almost nobody, was predicting such a rapid recovery. In March 25th at the Coronavirus Task Force at the White House, he was saying that this would happen. Take a listen to this.
We want them to use the money for the companies and the planes or whatever they may be helping to get over this rough patch. And I don't think it's going to end up being such a rough patch. I think it's going to, when we open, especially if we can open it, the sooner the better, it's going to open up like a rocket ship. I think it's going to go very good and very quickly.
There you go, like a rocket ship. President Trump was right, and I'll leave you with the close here. And now there is no stopping the economic recovery. In fact, this is unquestionably the most rapid economic recovery in American history. It should benefit him politically as the presidential campaign against former Vice President Joe Biden wears on. Stay tuned. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.